Okay, thank you for joining everyone. A very good morning. I'm Will Kennedy, Sales Director at Vioni. Welcome to our latest webinar, Business Voice. It's all about experience. This represents the latest in a series of campaigns designed to create awareness of some of the opportunities that exist today to increase your business performance through deploying the latest cloud communications technology. Just to set the scene, as a managed service provider who operates our own core network, Vioni have been delivering critical connectivity infrastructure to UK businesses for nearly 20 years now. In recent times, our customers have asked us to help improve their overall communications by supporting their transition away from traditional on-premise voice systems in order to secure the benefits of hosted cloud communications with the pending 2025 switch off of traditional analog telephony services a key driver, as well as the philosophy that your voice applications are only as strong as the network that they run on. In order to retain a competitive advantage in their respective markets, many organizations have had to adapt to changing communication needs, ensuring employees and customers can access their key business applications anytime, anywhere, whilst integration of instant messaging, video calling, voice and CRM packages are also deemed a prerequisite in today's world. I guess on the back of our customer needs, Vioni decided to select a partnership with one of the market leaders as recognised by Gartner and the industry in 8x8, with their focus on security, reliability, and I think more importantly, their single platform which integrates business phone, conferencing, chat, and quite uniquely contact center as well, and the associated APIs are key rationale for selecting 8x8 as our partner. And therefore, I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Andy Rawle from 8x8, who's going to be highlighting some of the key considerations, whether you're at the beginning of your journey to the cloud or already exploring hosted voice, unified communications, or contact center as a solution for your business. So thank you, Andy. I'll hand over to you.
Hey, Will, thanks very much. It's really, really great to be here this morning. So I've been with 8x8 a good number of years, and one of the great things is that as being a cloud-born organization, we've been providing cloud-based services now for decades. In fact, we have a really great insight into how organizations move to the cloud, embrace the cloud, and address the challenges of, well, how do we get from our investments today to where we need to get to tomorrow? So in this segment, what I'm going to be doing, and I just bring up a little summary here, is look at really these 5 themes, and we're going to get through these in hopefully quick succession. And we do have a chat channel open as part of the conference, so if you have any questions during the conference, do pop them in there, and we'll take a pause at mid-flow just to answer those questions and look at any comments that come up. So as we've really advertised this, it is all about experience, and it's the power of experience-based communications that's at the heart of how 8x8 works with its partners like Vioni and works with end user customers to deliver a meaningful way forward, a meaningful path to embrace cloud communications, integrated communications, and the challenges that we'll lay out. We'll also talk about how it's not just about 8x8 as a communications vendor, but when you're looking to choose or pick and choose a vendor to move forward with, and we appreciate there are plenty of other alternatives out there, and part of the purpose of this is to give you food for thought about questions to ask your prospective vendors as you make those decisions. But it's important, one of the questions is around ecosystem in terms of the third-party capabilities, whether it's CRM, ERP, or otherwise. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then Teams being a big theme. So many of you, I'm sure, have got some form of Microsoft license investment. And we'll put some perspective on that, where that fits into the cloud story, and finish off just with a couple of observations around 8x8 and how that might work as part of the next step. Now, where we see ourselves today is pretty much at a crossroads, whether we as a vendor, Vioni as a partner, or yourself as end user customers. You have an installed investment, And then you're looking all around you, look at your own competitors in your own markets and look at what they're doing, the services they're offering, the way they're interacting with customers, and also technology choice. But in many cases, there's this feeling of being encumbered by the past, encumbered by your installed base of solutions, and wondering, how do I make this next step forward? And there's this fork in the road. Do I proceed on the stairway to heaven of cloud enlightenment, or do I proceed and fall into the highway to hell of sticking with legacy equipment that falls out of maintenance, that falls into obsolescence and lack of support? So let's look first of all at, again, the theme of integration. I'm going to throw up a few pointers from research that has been done in the UK and beyond that really point to, I guess, the importance of looking at making new investments that are cohesive rather than just piece part. So, and you can access these through links at the end of the presentation, also from our website. But there's a demonstrable lower total cost of ownership if you look to integrate your communications, both internal communications and external communications with your customers, into a single cloud platform. What we've seen actually in recent months or even years is that whereas 8x8 a few years ago was one of the few vendors expounding this not theory, but this strategy or this approach, but you're now seeing a lot of vendors saying, actually, this is a pretty good approach, and starting to make investments to bring contact center into the cloud alongside UCaaS. Whereas the great thing with 8x8 is we've been here all along. And if you then look at, well, okay, if that's the theory about just cost of ownership, what are the tangible returns? So one thing that we work hard on is not just the idea of the raw cost of ownership. It's actually, what business outcomes can an investment in a cloud-based solution, what can that evoke? So that's something measurable. So if you're going to an investment authority, it could be within your organization, it could be external capital, and presenting your business case, it's not just about ROI. There are other tangible measurements around how efficient your agents can be in a contact center environment, and how cloud can drive that. And then maybe most importantly, this whole idea of customer experience, or CX, that you'll see, I'm sure, in your news feeds all the time, how you can measure customer experience. Because in most cases, your ability as a business to run and be effective, whether you're a private sector organization, a public sector organization, is how well you are serving your citizens, your customers, your supply chain. But unless you have a means to measure how effectively you're working with them, and a way of measuring the sentiment within the conversations and interactions, you don't really know how much of an effective job you're doing. And the more you can do that, the more you can improve it. And one thing that McKinsey concluded is, yes, it's about having the right investments. That's true, but the most important thing about moving forwards is to look at a solution that can be agile to change, that can be adaptable. We saw, in the events of the last 2-3, it seems a long time ago, but it is pretty recent, the events of the last 2-3 years, where organizations were forced to change their working habits, send employees home, work from home. And so we worked really hard with our customers, new customers, that said, well, we were planning to move to the cloud in a few years' time, but with the pandemic happening, we've got to do something pretty quickly, because in a month's time, all our staff could be working from home, and we need them to be able to continue to provide that service. So by having a cloud-based solution, the ability to react and be agile is absolutely key. So again, in terms of part of your decision-making process, consider solutions that give you that flexibility and agility, whether it's in consumption-based pricing, whether it's in scalable mix and match licensing, or whether it's in the resilience and flexibility around the data processing. So a key theme that we come back to a lot with an 8x8 is this idea that if we look at a typical customer, you, they, we will have disparate systems that are serving the two different type of communications. Back office communications, which typically is the system that traditionally would be powering the phones on people's desktops, or the apps that are running on company laptops and mobiles to enable you as an employee of an organization to communicate with your colleagues. And that's where traditionally PBXs and then latterly UCaaS systems, cloud systems, provided that capability, really and predominantly focus on internal communications and the ability to take and make external calls. Then on the other hand, you have those systems that are focused on providing service to external customers. And this is what is normally characterized as a contact center. You had ACD systems historically, and then more recently call centers and then contact centers. The name has evolved, but the role has stayed the same. And the key thing I have on the right-hand side is the idea of digital as a channel, the idea that it's not just a telephone call that could be the first point of contact with a customer. Many customers, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, are looking to connect to you as an organization through a channel that isn't a phone call. So contact centers have evolved to embrace digital, but still they're disparate. So if you're at this fork in the road and saying, well, I've got this traditional contact center, I've got this traditional PBX or voice system, I want to move forward. Yes, you could make some addition. You could move your PBX or hybrid PBX to pure cloud, and then you could then make it, once you've done that, go, okay, I'll make a second decision and move to contact center. But you've still got this disconnect between the two systems. What 8x8 advocates is the idea of an integrated system where both the employee experience, the internal communications, and the customer experience, communications with key customers through things like contact center functions, are combined into a single system with a single vendor solution, a single vendor owned and operated solution. So it means that if you, for example, are using Salesforce as your CRM, or Microsoft Dynamics as a CRM, you don't end up having to manage two separate integrations for your extension users and for your contact center agents. If you have a unified single platform solution, you're just managing one integration. So you have the economy, not just economies of scale, but you have the ability to control and manage a single system for both on both sides of the equation. Equally, around analytics, yes, historically there's been the idea of you want to measure so you can manage, but there've been separate analytics on the telephony or PBX side, and then on the contact center side. Again, looking at a new cloud-based solution, what we would advocate is look at solutions that can offer you what we would refer to as journey-based analytics. So from the point that a customer makes contact to the point that that call ends, no matter how they've arrived at the organization. Now, was it through text? Was it through an extension user? Was it through a contact center agent? To be able to track that conversation from the point it was made to the point it was closed, even if there might be multiple steps, calls being transferred between departments, calls starting as a digital conversation, then being escalated to a voice conversation and onward. So end-to-end analytics being absolutely key. And the thing that we also emphasize, again, going back to the fact it's all about experience, is in most organizations, given how things have evolved, it's far too simplistic to say, okay, we're going to give you a standard app for all your users, and it does X, Y, Z. Because in fact, as we're showing here, within an organization, you've got many different roles with many different requirements. And yes, you could give all of them a single app, a single user environment. And then in maybe 70% of cases, that's going to be good enough. It's like giving everyone the same telephone in the days we had telephones on our desk. But these days, when users typically are using software interfaces and apps, what we again would suggest and advise is look at solutions that are able to give specific user roles an interface that is right sized and optimized for those types of users. And I'll give just a few quick examples from an 8x8 perspective here. And then if this is something that's of particular interest, certainly in the follow-up from this presentation, speak to our friends at Vaoni, and we can then give you some more in-depth a more in-depth guide and preview and run through of these interfaces. So just quickly, we have something called Front Desk, which is not a standalone app. It's an extension of our standard 8x8 user app, and it's a mode, if you like, within that user app, which you can turn a standard extension user into a high volume call handler. Now, which typically is going to be in an office, going to be a receptionist, a departmental operator. So with a flick of a switch in a standard user interface, you can handle up to 10 concurrent calls, and you get a different UI. You get the ability to drag and drop calls to be highly efficient. But then the moment, let's say, that you then return to your, if you're in a dual role or hybrid role, sometimes you're an operator, sometimes you're an extension user. With a flick of a switch, you can then flick back to your normal user mode. So the idea is we're providing user experiences based off common software, where a user can right size the user experience. The other areas around supervisors. Supervisors, particularly in a contact center role, need instant access to real-time performance information, so they can judge how well their teams are handling calls, if their daily objectives are being met, and if there are any red flags in terms of call handling. So we've introduced something called Supervisor Workspace. Again, we'd love to give you a demonstration of that at a later point. Where Supervisor Workspace, again, it takes a standard desktop interface, but then if you're a supervisor, again, through a self-service tick box, you're able to create your own dashboard alongside your telephony interface, where that dashboard gives you the ability to drag and drop those summary reports that are most relevant for your role. So the idea is that we're providing an experience that's self-service, in that users with the appropriate licensing can then pick and choose, adapt and customize, so that they have exactly the experience that they need for their workload and for their environment. So the whole idea of the integrated platform is to drive the value to your organization of your communication system by providing, as I said, the cross-platform analytics. But most importantly, it's about resilience. One of the big questions that we have all the time is around cloud. Is it reliable compared to a premise-based system? And this is, in many ways, old news. What we found, looking at user stats and looking across the industry, that a cloud-based solution has actually proven to be more resilient and higher quality than a traditional premise-based solution, with a number of a small number of exceptions. In maybe the banking sector and some the high security environments where the use of closed networks that is demanded. But in general, and again, as part of the discussion we have with customers, that we can amply demonstrate uptime, and we can back that off with a documented and contracted service level agreement to deliver on that. Again, with every customer, we can walk through the options in terms of where the data resides, how calls are connected, and the resilience that we can provide, and the security we can provide, meeting the criteria that you need. The other thing, just to pause on, and then I'll I'll ask Catherine if we have any questions, is around this idea of I suppose it's generation based communications. I fall into kind of the right hand category. I've been here for a while, been in the industry for a long while, and yeah, it's fair to say myself and people of my generation are not necessarily most comfortable, but most used to communicating using the phone. Whereas the younger generations, particularly those coming into the workplace right now, have a different perspective on the way they interact, the way they consume information, and the rise of digital. So the reason for showing this is that to a degree, it's about having a solution for your employees, and your employees, how old they are, and you can customize that. But think about the profile of your customers, or the customers that you'd like to have, your prospects. Are they older generation or younger generation? Because the younger generation they get over time, the more that you need an agile solution, and cloud can enable this, that will ensure that as those people become budget owners, decision makers, and consumers of the services that you provide and products you provide, then it's more important that the cloud system you invest in has the capability to embrace digital communication in the same way as voice. So yes, voice is key, will remain to be key, but if you're making a decision looking forward as you're at that crossroads, think about making a decision where there is that possibility of embracing digital, and then right sizing the way that you can connect those people together. Because the telephony interface is actually just as important, because you might come in through a digital channel, let's say through a website query, but if the query can't be handled through an automated lookup, let's say through a bot or some form of AI, then users must always have the option to speak to a real human. And so in designing our system, we're making sure that if we're using AI or bots, and we have that capability built into the 8x8 platform, that it's key that it's simple and effective to be able to deflect calls back into a call queue. So digital does not replace voice, it enhances it. And we've got a paper that talks about this again in more detail. So if you have colleagues who are sort of questioning your decision maybe on moving towards a pure voice system, say, we need something that's pure digital, the actual answer is not either or, it's actually both. And then from an ecosystem standpoint, the main thing to point out is that if you're moving forward, you may have historical CRM systems, ERP systems, workforce management, HR systems that you're looking to continue with. And naturally, a lot of those have moved into the cloud. And the more that you can integrate those in your system moving forward, the more that makes most sense. The key point about this is that we have within 8x8 a structured program that we call the Technology Partner Ecosystem. I'm sure that has an acronym, but there always is an acronym. But the point is, again, when you're talking to your prospective technology provider, ask the questions about those third-party apps and how well your prospective provider can integrate with them. Do they have off-the-shelf integrations? Are there custom APIs? Are there professional services that will help enable that to happen? And the idea through our service is that we have a set of relationships with a large number of third-party vendors, and so we'd be pleased to speak to any customers that have either ones that we already support or ones that they'd like us to support to drive their solutions. So Catherine, with that, I'm just going to take a pause because I think there's a few questions that have come up on the chat. So what have you got for us?
Yeah, so it's really touching on the same topic actually in terms of both questions, and it's around XCaaS. So The question is, I've heard and seen people talking about XCaaS recently. What exactly is it?
Oh, we love the acronym. So the whole world over the last 5 years has always been about as a service. It could be bicycles as a service, through the Lime bikes and Santander bikes. It could be sweets as a service where you can buy a subscription, razor blades as a service. They're all these as a services. In the communications realm, you've had voice as a service, or more commonly unified comms as a service, UCaaS, and then contact center in the cloud, where you can, again, you're subscribing to a software-based subscription model rather than having to make a capital investment. Contact center, or CCaaS as it's referred to. What we coined as a category, because we're trying to sort of figure out now how do we encapsulate that in a AS or AAS, was XCaaS, which means integrated. It's integrated, or the X actually stands for experience. So it's experience as a service, which 8x8 have coined. Interestingly, what you'll see this, and it's quite gratifying in some ways, because imitation is the finest form of flattery, is you'll see people refer to variations on experience as a service that we call XCaaS, but it's all about how can you source a solution where you have the choice of building blocks that enable you to focus on your users, what they need, rather than it just being, I'll bolt a UC system and a CC system together, to make it into one. So that's how we term XCaaS. It's all about experience, as it says on the tin in the invite for this call. But it is all about experience and how you deliver that, regardless of whether it's a UC or a CC play. So, any more for now, or I'll carry on, and we'll maybe look at some more questions towards the end.
Carry on, and we can get some more questions as we move through, Andy.
Great. And it's all about teamwork, or teams work, in fact. So one of the most common conversations we have with customers that come to us at trade shows, that phone us up, or from our install base, or the customers of our partners like Vaoni that we work with, one of the most common themes is around Teams, the theme of Teams. So Microsoft Teams is not a new capability. It's a capability that's evolved over maybe 20 years from within Microsoft Office, or Office 365, as it moved into the cloud, where Teams started off as a simple collaboration capability with chat and meetings and message lookup, that since then has embraced video, whiteboarding, and in more recent times, a fully fledged enterprise class telephony as well. So what we get from customers a lot is questions about, well, we have Office 365 licenses. We have users that are using Teams, that like Teams. We have legacy PBX or VoIP system. We have contact center. We like this whole idea of unification. Now, what do we do if we have these three disparate investments or potential investments? So next couple of minutes, I'll give, I guess, a review of where I believe the market is and what might be a good way forward. I think first of all to note is that it's pretty undeniable that Microsoft Office, or the pure cloud-based version of it, is now pretty much mainstream and present in the large majority of organizations that are using Word or Excel or the productivity apps, and using some of the other capabilities that are bundled as part of the different levels of Office. And Teams is even in the most basic Office license, you do get a version of Teams which has got collaboration capability but not telephony. So that's kind of the first thing, that it is pretty much endemic. But there is this telephony capability that you can enable either as an option or buy a higher order license. And we've seen a lot of customers starting to use that, though with varying degrees of success, because it is a decent phone system. You can make calls, you can receive calls, and it's a good general purpose generic system. But it does require an additional license to do that. And also, in its most basic form, it's tied into the calling plan options that are available from Microsoft. And as it's showing here, the adoption right now is of the order of 70 million of that 300 that are actively using it are using some form of telephony within Teams. What that says is that adoption is pretty low and has a way to go, but also that we believe that customers are looking for more, and so our approach is to see, well, how do we add value in a Teams environment whilst not competing with or looking to replace Teams. So our view of within 8x8 of Teams is it's a great collaboration solution, and as a general purpose user interface. And many of you out there may even be using it, day in, day out. So what we do is we have a service option called Microsoft Voice for Teams, or Voice for Microsoft Teams. Essentially, that means you can use a Teams interface, but then for telephony and calling and PSTN connectivity, it's direct routed through the 8x8 network. So you get the benefit of not having to, if you're adopting Teams, you can drive the adoption, but at a lower cost because you don't need the expensive licenses that you require with Teams. But the end benefit from using the voice services that are available within 8x8. This is using something called direct routing, which is a common methodology that other service providers use. And so if you're looking at other vendors, certainly they can offer a similar connectivity through their networks. What we would advise is take a look at what type of calling plans are available, what sort of reliability and voice quality is there, and also the geographic reach of those third-party services. And what you'll see is all 8x8 offers is very very competitive in that regard. Also, because it's you're enabling a Teams user with 8x8, it also means that Teams user, although they're using Teams at the front end, that user also has access to other services or surround services that are present within the 8x8 network. And these are capabilities that aren't automatically available within Teams. So advanced call recording, for example, and archiving, support for a wider range of handsets or endpoints, contact center capability. Microsoft has no good native contact center. It's all third party, and 8x8 has a solution certification from Microsoft to do that. So I guess in short, it's all about looking at a vendor that has not only integration, that is idea of experience-based communication, but also the ability to embrace Teams as an adjunct or as a complement to the solution, rather than saying, well, either use Teams or don't use Teams. It's about adding value and streamlining the capability. The other thing that we do, and if we get into a more detailed conversation about Teams, we offer a number of different license options for users, depending on if they're lightweight telephony users or heavyweight telephony users. We have a few options that we can bring to bear, which will give customers a choice as to whether they go for the full native Teams experience, or an experience where you're using Teams for all your collaboration, but then you can use a phone app, which means you don't have to invest in the Teams telephony license. It will still work, and it still complies to Microsoft's API, so Microsoft are happy. It's not reverse engineered. It's an approved integration, but we're just providing choice in the way that you can integrate Teams, at the same time taking advantage of what 8x8 can provide. And it's all about this idea of mixing and matching. Going back to the idea of it's all about experience. It's all about enabling you to enable the right capabilities for your population of users. Now, whether they're UCaaS or telephony users, whether they're Teams users, or whether they're contact center users, it's all the same platform. So that's why we focus so much on experience-based communication, because it is just that. And we'd be delighted to talk to you more about how individual customers that we've helped implement over time have actually benefited. So these are not just weasel words and marketing rhetoric. We've got 3 years of experience of integrating with Teams. We have close to 400,000 users that are connected, Microsoft Teams users that are connected into 8x8. And that right now stands at maybe 20% of our whole install base. So a very significant use case that we've been able to drive. And really, if we're to talk about just drawing this presentation towards a close, and we'll do some more questions in a second. Experience it's not just individually about the customer experience, employee experience. It's actually the value of having a cohesive solution that delivers total experience. So Gartner did a study a few years ago that just says for the optimum return on your investment in making a cloud communication, making a communications investment, and driving better satisfaction, was in the combination of customer experience and employee experience, which we certainly advocate, but it's a secret source of user experience that is most important. And so this is the area and why 8x8 is concentrated so much on these custom user experiences, and I gave you a flavor of that with Front Desk and Supervisor Workspace, and we'll continue to drive that. And the way we can do that is because we own our own platform. It's not a mixture of third-party technologies. It's our own platform that we own and operate across the world. And if you have colleagues, you go and you say, "Oh, I was on this webinar, or I watched the replay of this webinar from 8x8, and it sounded pretty good." Your colleague go, "Well, I don't really know who 8x8 is. So what is it about them? Give me some facts about them." What we would normally do, well, what I'm going to do now is say that Gartner has got have annual reports on both UCaaS and CCaaS, and for 10 years, or over 10 years in the case of UCaaS, and just less than 10 years in the case of CCaaS, we've been in the exalted company of industry leaders in both cases. If you get a copy of this presentation, I've included click-through links so you can see those reports. But this is what we usually point people to that want to understand a little bit more about 8x8 from an impartial point of view. So, Catherine, with that, I think I've explained how the value of experience and how getting UC right is key to driving the customer interaction. Integration is really important because it's all about being agile in the way that you operate in your market, and that your technology or your communication doesn't hold you back. And the ability to do that at pace and flexibly is absolutely vital. So what I'm going to do now is leave you with our banner. And Catherine, I think you have maybe a couple more questions.
I do, yes. So first question to the panel. What's the best network to run 8x8 on if you've got multiple sites, MPLS, SD-WAN, or multiple internet circuits?
That's a great question, Catherine, and there's sort of many answers, but I'll take that on board. It depends on how many sites you have and the number of employees you have per site, but ultimately you want a good user experience, especially with video. So we'd always recommend having a lease line, an Ethernet lease line as a minimum, and that will remove all jitter latency and any quirkiness that you've got with that connection. For multiple sites, we're finding now that SD-WAN is really popular. It gives you that flexibility of allowing multiple connection technologies within that estate. Whereas the MPLS, you always require those sort of traditional sort of static links. Something else we're finding really popular with our customers is a bit of a hybrid model. And that's where we're running SD-WAN over MPLS, and that gives a greater level of security, increased performance, and greater operator SLAs as well with that form of connectivity. And something else which is really key to mention is that all Vioni connectivity customers can benefit from a service that we call Cloud Connect. Cloud Connect is a service that connects users internally via the data center environment to over 150 different cloud organizations. 8x8 is one of those, hence you can get to 8x8 securely within that data center environment. And as I say, an extensive list of 150. These include AWS, Azure, Salesforce, Oracle, just to name a few. And the advantage of this is it allows the traffic to travel between your organization and those cloud providers privately and securely, bypassing the public internet. And again, that enhances security, makes a round trip delays really quick. So I would say, yeah, as a basic entry point, always look for a lease line. They're so cost effective these days. And then either SD-WAN or SD-WAN over MPLS. And yeah, we don't charge a premium for that, so that's pretty good. But I'm happy to share any information with any audience members, questions, collateral afterwards. But hopefully that's a good insight to start with.
We've got another question just to the panel, which I think moves on from that previous question, but it's also talking about multiple sites, but also kind of how many organizations have multiple sites that have perhaps accumulated on-premise technology over a period of time, whether that's organic growth or acquisition growth. What's the best working practice for organizations to become more agile and go on that journey to the cloud? Can you put some perspective around that for us?
Well, I'll kick off with that, and then maybe Andy or Will can come into that one. So we find this a lot, especially with acquisitions, when companies acquire other organisations and organic growth, and especially over a period of time. Some multitude of systems from legacy PBX, some cloud can all become. But what we can do, we can provide a single cloud in parallel. So we can look at all the systems and overview, and we can very simply, via a good internet connection, provide connectivity to one site, to two sites, to 100 sites, and it's a very simplistic licensing model. And they can just log in and log out and operate. And when that system is working smoothly and efficiently, with it not being in conflict to the existing environment, the design topology, we can switch the old one off, and we can do this on a series of stepping stones, what to do to start with. So it doesn't have to be a big bang approach. It doesn't have to be scary. We can do it gently, softly. And then over a period of time, that could be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever we agree with them, our clients, we can transition them and take them on that digital journey to the cloud. And then they'll get greater benefits and cost savings and remove all the legacy equipment. That's how I've worked in the past, and it's been always pretty efficient. Andy or Will, anything to add to that? Have I missed anything?
I think it's just about working in conjunction with our customers as an extension of their own teams, and making sure that we align, and through our managed service approach, as I say, as an extension of our customers' teams. That's what's critical here. We work in parallel to make sure it works for you.
Yeah, and I think what you said is exactly the approach we'd advocate, that we or you move at the speed of the customer based on their requirements. I mean, there are things that you can do in terms of that there are certain handsets. If customers want to reuse handsets in certain cases, we can do that if that's going to aid adoption. Because the key thing that we measure, and I know that customers measure, is around. It's not just about that investment. It's about how can you get users productive and adopting the capability you're giving them. And if part of that transition is keeping their headset or keeping their existing handset for a period of time during that transition, then that can aid adoption. So when our services team work with our partners as well, we do have things like adoption programs which include training options. We have a lot of self-service videos and user information, so that enables users that are not quite sure about new interfaces, enable them to get up to speed. And then have a way of measuring that. But we found that, coupled with, as Will rightly said, being really finely attuned to what is the outcome that a customer wants to achieve, and helping them to achieve that.
Another question which we've got is just in relation to demos. So what would a typical demo look like, which I think is probably a question to the Vioni team?
I can take that initially.
Okay.
I think, again, it's really, really important that we work in parallel with our customers. Experience tells us that when our customers engage with their other key stakeholders in the business, so that can be users, whether that be in call center environments with contact center in mind, whether that be users who need to collaborate with other departments internally, making sure that we really understand their ways of working, their processes, and can tailor a demonstration to those needs, really does bring the power of the solution to the fore. So gathering those requirements, tailoring demonstrations is exactly how we usually go about these matters, and we'd obviously be delighted to tailor a demonstration to anyone who would like to pursue that from here.
That concludes the questions that we've had through from audience members.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine. So I guess we've probably reached the end of the session, so it would probably be worth me just summing up even. So thank you again to our panelists, and thank you, Andy, for joining us today from 8x8. Greatly appreciated. Some good questions coming through there, so thank you for all of our customers who have engaged with us. By way of a summary from what Andy was saying, I think the advice would be to reflect on where you are at this point in time in your journey to the cloud. And how do you take those next critical steps to securing business efficiency and the growth opportunity that platforms such as the 8x8 solution do present? Have you considered how utilising contact centre, especially with its seamless integration on the same platform, could enhance your employee user experience, whilst also providing some of those self-service management analytics that Andy talked about, which can identify areas to improve your business performance? And of course, all of that helps to secure further engagement with your customers. So that's really key in driving enhanced performance. I think your choice of vendor will be crucial in minimizing risk and maximizing the returns. Obviously, we hope that could be in conjunction with 8x8 and Vioni, but we're very aware that you have other options. But whatever those options you do consider, make sure that you are considering a vendor who already has the infrastructure for seamless integration with other critical applications, whether that be Teams, as Andy was talking about, or indeed other key CRM packages, because again, the easier that flow and that integration, then the better the experience is going to be. I think working with a business who can provide a direct connection into your business voice cloud application, as Justin was just responding to one of the questions there, actually, is also really important, because that can help guarantee the latency and the network performance that will really empower the application rather than hinder it. the performance of your business voice applications will only be as good as the network that it runs over. And as Andy quite theatrically stated earlier, ensuring you progress on the stairway to heaven rather than the highway to hell, obviously, is going to be really, really critical here. This is a great opportunity for your business to help it scale, help it grow, but you don't want to hinder it with complicated integration and complicated processes. In terms of our next step, again, I think we just probably touched on that, but we would certainly suggest as a follow-up to this session that the best way forward would be to arrange a follow-up independent demonstration. Some people prefer a more tailored conversation first before a demonstration, which is equally fine. But again, engaging with your other key users, your other key stakeholders in the business as early as possible is quite important to start to understand their requirements and also give them a feel as to perhaps some of the new considerations that these applications and platform and the opportunities they can bring they may not have previously considered, and that you might want to build into future workflows and processes to maximize the opportunity here. So yeah, Vione and 8x8 would be delighted to arrange that for you, and we'll obviously follow up with an email further to this that will include a copy of the presentation and ways in which you can engage further moving forward. So hopefully you have found today's session of value, and it has helped to highlight why business voice, it really is all about the experience, and making the right investment is crucial to growing rather than constraining your business. So thank you again for joining us today. Delighted to have hosted the session and look forward to engaging with you all very soon. Thank you.